world's population, to share their lives with friends and family around the world, all for free. And let's not forget that Facebook has been a vital tool for social and political organization, from the Arab Spring to Obama's presidential campaign. The world is a complex and messy place, and while it's convenient to scapegoat a single CEO for our polarized politics, the fact is there were multiple causes for Brexit and Trump, of course. There are problems at Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg is keenly aware of them. In January 2018, he made a promise to fix Facebook, admitting that the organization makes too many errors in listing his priorities as protecting our community from abuse and hate, defending against interference by nation-states, or making sure that time spent on Facebook is time well spent. Much of what we are reading about Facebook is old news. Zuckerberg is essentially an idealist, and we should at least give him the benefit of the doubt as he seeks to rebuild the world's trust in Facebook. That's the argument of Zuckerberg's defenders. But are they right? Join us on June 18, hear the arguments and decide for yourself. Conservative MP for Folkestone and Hythe and Chair of the House of Commons. Digital Culture, Media and Sport Committee. He has played a key role in parliamentary scrutiny of Facebook's activities, including invoking a rare parliamentary mechanism to seize internal Facebook documents over the Cambridge Analytica scandal. Nina Schick, expert and political commentator focusing on how technology and artificial intelligence are reshaping democracy and geopolitics. She was a recent political advisor to former NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen, leading research into next-generation disinformation in the form of AI-generated deep fakes. She is a regular commentator on Sky News, BBC and Bloomberg. Former head of executive communications for Facebook, over the last decade he has advised some of Silicon Valley's most prominent leaders and companies. He was Mark Zuckerberg's speechwriter from 2012-16 and was previously executive speechwriter for Google's Eric Schmidt. He is also head of communications for SpaceX, Elon Musk's rocket company. Conservative MP for Wantage and Didcot, who served as Minister for Culture, Communications and Creative Industries from 2010 to 2016 under David Cameron. Helen Lewis is Associate Editor of The New Statesman and has written on technology for The Sunday Times, Wired and The Guardian. Her first book, Difficult Women, is out next year. The Daily: The Rise of Nationalism Across the Globe. In this week's podcast, we hosted a live conversation from The Daily, the New York Times flagship podcast. In an event in partnership with The New York Times, we were joined by the podcast's host, Michael Barbaro, as well as Berlin Bureau Chief Catherine Benhold, London-based international correspondent Ellen Barry, executive producer Theo Balcom, and producer Claire Tony Scota for a conversation about the implications of the nationalist undercurrent currently sweeping across Europe. Listen now. Share tweet forward. Documentary. Jeffrey. Reminder. Ice update. Did the British promise the Arabs independence in Palestine? Did the British promise the Arabs independence in Palestine? In July 1915, Hussein ibn Ali, the Sheriff of Mecca, sent a letter to Sir Henry McMahon, the High Commissioner for Egypt, informing him of the terms for Arab participation in the war against the Turks. The letters between Hussein and McMahon that followed outlined the areas that Britain was prepared to cede to the Arabs in exchange for their help. Too late today. Trump's Saudi arms sale is about politics and economics, not security. Bang at your bod. President Trump wants to use his emergency powers to sell billions of dollars worth of weapons to Saudi Arabia on national security grounds.
Congress wants to stop the sale because of lingering anger over Saudi abuses and the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and the usurpation of its legal authority to review arms sales. Both sides are ingenuous. The willingness to sell the Saudis weapons has little to do with American national security, and everything to do with economics and politics. Travel, Israel, religion, new this week. Arizona-Israel cooperation. The U.S.-Israel relationship is based on the twin pillars of shared values and mutual interest, giving this commonality of interests and beliefs. It should not be surprising that support for Israel is one of the most pronounced and consistent foreign policy values of the American people. Today's interdependent global economy requires that trade policy be developed at the national and state level. Many states have recognized the opportunity for realizing significant benefits while seeking to increase trade with Israel. Arizona is one of 33 states that have cooperative agreements with Israel. Views on Israel of U.S. presidential candidates 20,000. Amy Klobuchar. Amy Jean Klobuchar was born on May 25, 1960 in Plymouth, Minnesota. Klobuchar is the daughter of Rose and Chin Klobuchar. She has one younger sister. Her parents divorced when Klobuchar was 15. Klobuchar attended public schools in Plymouth and was valedictorian at Wayzata High School in 1982. She graduated from Yale magna cum laude with a BA in political science during college. She was a member of the Yale College Democrats, the Feminist Caucus, and the improv troupe Suddenly Susan during her time at Yale. Klobuchar spent time as an intern for then Vice President and former Minnesota Senator Walter Mondale. Her senior thesis was Uncovering the Dome, a history of the 10 years of politics surrounding the building of the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome in Minneapolis. John Humphreys, the terrier of today, in conversation with Justin Webb. John Humphreys is the radio for today. I'm not sure I'd like me if I was listening to me. John Humphreys. John Humphreys is the Radio 4 Today program presenter whose forensic and sometimes aggressive interviews with figures in authority inspire love and loathing in equal measure. The Observer's television critic once wrote that if he ever found himself sitting next to Humphreys at a dinner party, he would probably drive a fork through his hand. The Tory politician Jonathan Aitken accused him of poisoning the well of democratic debate, a comment which prompted an outburst of support for Humphreys, with the Daily Mail describing him as one of the most brilliant journalists in the countries. This autumn, as Humphreys steps down after 32 years at Today and publishes a long-awaited memoir, he comes to the Intelligence Squared stage to give an exclusive, behind-the-scenes account of his extraordinary career. Turning the tables on Humphreys and pitching the questions will be his Today colleague Justin Webb. Humphreys will recount the momentous episodes of his career, such as his interview with BBC correspondent Andrew Gilligan in 2003. Gilligan claimed that the government had deliberately sex-stepped the dossier on the threat posed by Saddam Hussein in order to justify the Iraq War. A chain of events ensued, including the suicide of the dossier's source, Dr. David Kelly, severe damage to Tony Blair's reputation, and the Hutton and Chilcot inquiries into the war. And then there was the time Humphreys helped to get his own boss fired, his tough interview with the BBC Director General George Entwistle. days after the BBC had made false child abuse allegations against Lord McAlpine lead to Entwistle's resignation after a mere 53 days in the job. Join us on October 9 and hear Humphrey's previously untold stories about politicians, celebrities, and the BBC, and give his trenchant views on the role of the media in politics and the health of our political system. John Humphreys, award-winning journalist who has been one of the presenters of BBC Radio. John Humphreys. John Humphreys, in July 1915. In July 1915. John Humphreys. John Humphreys.
Hello, Jeffrey. I've been giving much more thought to your case. We were destined to meet, perhaps not for the reasons you may think. You are a man of science and numbers. I am an advocate of at-risk victims. We approach issues and problems from different directions in order to find solutions. Since we last spoke July 2010, much water has crossed under the bridge. I still would like to talk with you and learn your side of the story. Thank you. I'm not sure if you are a spiritual or religious person. If you would give yourself over to God, He is almighty in every way. Conchita. Dear Jeff, I read the newspapers today. I can't believe they arrested you again. You are the only man on the planet who would never be bad with any woman as you love them too much. It is so untrue what they are saying. If you need my support, I am there. I was 19 when I met you with our wonderful commune friend, HRH Princess. And you would have never done anything wrong to me. I meet the few lovely girls around you. They loved you, and you were so good with them. They were bringing you ideas, creativity, a touch of youth in this very difficult world, and happiness like a young can do. Nothing more. Then of course I am sure they were happy to hope to become your girlfriend, as women are always attracted by men of power. I traveled with you to discuss my future in business. You introduced me amongst the most important scientists and neuroscientists in the world at Harvard University. And you kindly advised me to continue to study. You also explained to me that life is hard and business is difficult. You were feeling I should study more. All your advices were so right. Thank you. I feel sorry that these girls are only interested by your money. I feel sorry for that. And they might be manipulated by people of power who wish to do bad to the Trump government. Do you remember that you asked me to be your girlfriend? I was back in France after our trip together in Harvard. You tried to convince me on the phone. I refused, and look, today we stayed friends forever. You never did anything wrong, as these girls are mentioning. It was up to them to be involved with you sexually. It was their own decision, not your wish. I don't know if you will read this message, I hope so. Please receive my warmest wishes and love. Flipboard. Interesting stories worth your time. Suffering unseen. The dark truth behind wildlife tourism. National Geographic Koyuktasha Daily captive wild animal encounters are hugely popular, thanks partly to social media. But our investigation shows many creatures lead dismal lives. This, the new American religion of UFOs. Vox.com Sean Illing last week. The New York Times published a viral article about reports of UFOs off the East Coast in 2014 and 2015. It included an interview with 5, sketching the stars. How art can advance astronomy. Undark Gorge Mara Johnson grow from Galileo's drawings of the moon to the Hubble Space Telescope celestial images. Science has a long history of animating the cosmos through. Here's how a meeting between the Queen and the US President went. Time.com Sierra Nugent President Donald Trump's state visit to the UK began Monday amid fresh blows in his ongoing feud with London Mayor Sadiq Khan. Dispute over the end of the iTunes era. The life and death of Apple's curator-in-chief. The Times.com Randall Roberts, the last time music engineer and producer Bill Inglot spoke to his friend Gary Stewart. Inglot was in a Baskin-Robbins parking lot, eating an ice cream. Redmore. James Holzhauer missed these tricky Jeopardy clues. Can you get them right? Useruday.com Hannah Yasharoff James Holzhauer has finally reached the end of his historic 33-game Jeopardy. Run the 34-year-old professional gambler earned a total of 2,464,216. 14 millennials got honest about how they afforded homeownership. BuzzFeedNews.com Annie Helen Peterson. I don't know anyone in their 20s who has the savings for a down payment without family help. For most millennials I know the American dream of 2 1 of 5 miles and 100 parks. One woman's epic hike around New York City. The Guardian.com round New York City. The Guardian Dalpoon. When we talk about hiking, we typically think about escaping urban confines and exploring land less touched by humanity. We envision walking through. A soccer ball can tell a story. By Alex Morgan, a soccer ball can tell a story. The one I'm thinking of, it actually wasn't much of a soccer ball at all. It was really just a bunch of balled up the Muslims who don't fast during Ramadan. Aklasapster at that kind Lynn Pearson Ding. I don't know anyone in their 20s who has the savings for a down payment without family help. For most millennials I know, the American dream of 215 miles and 100 parks. One woman's epic hike around New York City. TheGuardian.com.
Documentary Jeffrey, biggest news stories from the past week. With flyovers and flags, Trump plays MC for the 4th. MyTimes.com, Michael D. Shear, Washington. In a made-for-television Independence Day production starring America's military weaponry.
President Trump on Thursday used the Lincoln. North Korea says U.S. hell-bent on hostile acts despite wanting to talk. Reuters.com by Michelle Nichols. United Nations. North Korea's mission to the United Nations accused the United States on Wednesday of being more and more hell-bent on. Trump weighs executive order to add citizenship question to census. Bloomberg.com. Just in sync, Andrew M. Harris, Bob Van Voorhis president. Donald Trump said he may issue an executive order to add a question on citizenship to the 2020 census as the administration considers. Trump warns Iran nuclear threats will come back to bite you. TheGuardian.com. Guardian staff and agents. France press. Donald Trump has warned Iran to be careful with threats as they can come back to bite you, in response to Tehran's vow that it will exceed within. Arrests made over Hong Kong protests. Legislature break-in. Appnews.com. Johnson Lay. Hong Kong police said they had arrested 13 people after the protests on Monday's anniversary of Hong Kong's return to China, including one man. Acting DHS chief orders immediate investigation into offensive posts allegedly written by Border Patrol agents. EN.com. Priscilla Alvarez, CNN. Acting Department of Homeland Secretary Kevin McAleenan has ordered an immediate investigation into offensive posts that allegedly includes House Democrats sue for Trump's tax returns. Politico.com. Rand Fowler. House Democrats on Tuesday sued for President Trump's tax returns, marking the beginning of a high-stakes legal fight over his efforts to keep his taxes. Corey Coco Golf. 15-year-old American storms back for another Wimbledon upset. YouSaturday.com. Scott Gleason. The 15-year-old American pulled off another huge upset Friday, this one in a third-round thriller that saw her come back to beat Slovenian Polona Hercog. Alex Morgan and Alyssa Naher lead U.S. win into 2-1 victory over England in World Cup semis. NNews.com. David K. Lee. The defending champs are now one victory away from hoisting the trophy for a fourth time. Alex Morgan celebrated her 30th birthday Tuesday by scoring a European leaders back German Defense Minister Ursula von der Leyen to be first female European Commission president. Washington Post. Quentin Arias. Michael Birnbaum. Brussels. European leaders on Tuesday proposed awarding the powerful presidency of the European Commission to German Defense Minister Ursula von der. Read more. Check out the daily edition for the biggest stories in news, business, tech, sports, and entertainment. Documentary Jeffrey biggest news stories from the past week. And flyovers and flags. Documentary. North Korea says U.S. hell-bent. And North Korean too. Documentary. North Korea says. Documentary. North Korea says U.S. hell-bent. Documentary. Jeffrey. Documentary. Jeffrey documentary. North Korea says Jeffrey documentary. Jeffrey dunk MMA. North Korea says US hellbent. North Korea says documentary. North Korea says Jeffrey documentary. North Korea says Jeffrey documentary. North Korea says US hellbent. North Korea says US hellbent. North Korea says. North Korea says documentary. Jeffrey biggest. North Korea says. North Korea says documentary. Jeffrey says US hellbent. North Korea says documentary. Jeffrey documentary. Jeffrey says US hellbent. Documentary. Jeffrey biggest news stories from the past week. Jeffrey documentary. Jeffrey biggest news story.